is The Global View on this Tuesday, November the 21st. Really nice to be with you. I'm Nadine Blaney. Microsoft shares in firm focus. They rallied to a record high after Sam Altman was hired for a new venture following his abrupt dismissal as CEO of OpenAI. OpenAI, for its part, named ex-Twitch boss Emmett Shear as interim CEO. The appointments, which were settled late at night on Sunday in the US, followed Sam Altman's ousting on Friday as CEO of OpenAI, which makes ChatGPT, and it also ended speculation that he could return to OpenAI. Microsoft says that it will continue to partner with OpenAI as fervor around AI technology and the huge profits it's expected to create continue to dominate Wall Street.
I view it as a win-win. I mean, they've invested billions in OpenAI, but if you can end up basically acquiring all their intellectual talent, if not necessarily all their intellectual property, but if you could essentially hire their leader and then have, call it, I think it was 600 plus engineers. The number kept changing. So it was like 599, then over 700 at one point. If you've got if you have basically all their engineers threatening to quit and say, and willing to join Microsoft, who is more than willing to take them, well, in that sense, your minority investment of $3 billion is torched, but you end up with the majority of the intellectual capital at the company. And so it's kind of a win-win. If OpenAI figures it out, well, then that's fine for Microsoft's investment. If they manage to acquire all their engineering staff, at sort of regular salaries plus or whatever it is, then that's fine. I guess that they're willing to light that $3 billion on fire because you have the company anyway, the majority of the company anyway, essentially.
So that was Steve Sosnick from Interactive Brokers, and we do now have some breaking news on Reuters that OpenAI investors are considering suing the board after that abrupt firing of Sam Altman. So this is according to sources coming to us by Reuters. Saying that investors are working with legal advisors to study their options. Not immediately clear if these investors will sue OpenAI, but obviously investors are worried that their hundreds of millions of dollars that they've invested in this company could suffer catastrophic losses as what was increasingly looking like to be a potential collapse of the hottest AI startup in this rapidly growing sector. So let's get some perspective. Lachlan Hughes from Swell Asset Management joining us live via Skype. Lachlan, boy, you get the feeling this story is far from over.
100% agree with you, Nadine. It's far from over. And I think the latest development is around 515 employees have now signed a letter asking that the board of OpenAI step down. So yeah, a long way to go from here. And as you said, over the weekend, we heard a lot of news, and the largest of those is having Sam Altman and Greg Brockman take up positions with Microsoft, and we know that Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, has said he will take the team as well. So look, yeah, it's plenty to go from here, but at this stage it's looking okay for Microsoft.
Well, that's the question, right? If you're a Microsoft investor, as our previous guest was saying, is it win-win? Is that how you see it, Logan?
Look, I don't know whether it's necessarily a win-win. The two assets of OpenAI are one, obviously the IP, which includes the ChatGPT model, and the second one is the employees. So given the fact that Microsoft's happy to take the employees, that's definitely part of it. And the other part is they have a license to the technology, to the ChatGPT model. So they are protected. But is it a win-win? I'm not sure at this stage. I think it's still more to play out, but Microsoft's in a reasonable position. I think the share market reaction of going up a couple of percent was probably fair given the what's happened so far.
It's so interesting. Another person that I follow was saying that it's just really blown up the status quo in AI at the very least. Because really now it's anyone's game. You can disagree with that, but what we do know is that even at Microsoft's Ignite event last week, like a lot of the chips are falling in the AI basket for Microsoft. So again, does this enhance the other options and the other optionality that they were going for when it comes to AI? Or does it complicate matters perhaps because now you've got more of a competitive landscape, at least you've got more of a competitive landscape?
Yeah, I think you're right. Alphabet and Amazon would be quite happy with this playing out at the moment. Microsoft had almost an unassailable lead, and I think they've probably come back to the field a little bit now. So yeah, as you mentioned, I think Amazon and Alphabet would be happy with the way it's playing out. But I guess one of the other big trends with the industry is, as you mentioned, is the chips. And these big AI companies are looking to lessen their reliance on NVIDIA. NVIDIA chips are obviously very popular, very expensive, and the largest of the cloud hyperscalers, being Google Cloud and Amazon and Microsoft, are creating their own chips to compete. So look, it is favouring where AI is heading at the moment. It is favouring the largest companies in the world, because these are the ones that can and has the resources to deploy, to make their own, design their own chips. And as for Microsoft, it has the option of employing 500 people from OpenAI, and that's only available to the world's biggest companies.
And Lachlan, what is your sense? Because as an investor, you must be keeping your finger on the pulse as to whether or not AI is living up so far to the very high expectations that we have in terms of how it will make our lives, if not easier, perhaps in the workplace at least, more productive.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw a little bit of an update with regards to that at Microsoft's Igniting event last week. And for the companies who have chosen to use the Copilot, Microsoft 365, they're showing really, really good results. They're becoming more productive, and this is a good sign. It means that the people who've taken up the product will continue using the product, but also means that the sales pitch for future users is very strong. So look, we're feeling very good about the Copilot and how it's tracking. And I should say it's just such an enormous opportunity, because there's over 300 million enterprise seats out there, and charging $30 a month, that's a total addressable market of $9 billion a month, or $108 billion a year. So it's a huge TAM, and at this stage Microsoft's just scratching the surface, but we see that continuing to grow over time.
Okay, let's just move from that, only in the interest of time. Sorry, Lachlan, but I don't want to ignore the fact that we've been through US quarterlies. Actually, before we go there, can I just get a thought on NVIDIA? I mean, I was having a chat earlier that it's really going to have to shoot the lights out. It's really going to have to say something spectacular about what's to come to maintain its trajectory. Do you agree? Are we sort of potentially set up for a disappointment from NVIDIA?
Look, we don't own NVIDIA, but I think we probably aren't set up for disappointment. I actually think the result will be very good. The demand for the chips is high. I think they'll sell as many as they have. So, what we've been hearing in the industry is a number of the large hyperscalers are getting their hands on as many as they can, and also even the smaller AI ventures are trying to get access to them. So we think the demand's strong. It's kind of the hottest thing in tech at the moment. NVIDIA should print a good result this quarter, we believe.
Okay, so now, been through quarterlies, had a lot of company commentary about the state of the economy, about the state of inflation, the state of the US consumer. What are your big takeaways?
Our big takeaway is, and we've kind of been pleasantly surprised by the fact that CEOs of Walmart and Costco and Target are all saying the same thing, which they believe inflation is coming back, which is very good. It's very good for equities. It's good for interest rates. So can be a positive for the housing market longer term as well. So we're feeling really good coming out of reporting season, given the fact that inflation is starting to come down. And one element of the inflation that is still high is shelter, which was up 6.7% in the most recent month. But there's a quirk in the way they calculate that, and it's only 1/6 is added to the way they calculate that each month. So it takes a full 6 months to cycle through, and we know that inflation in shelter is coming down over time. So we see the next 6 months being very positive for lower inflation on shelter, and given the fact that it contributes over 30% to the CPI number, we think we're going to see lower inflation over time, which is good for interest rates and ultimately good for investors.
And do you reckon we're going to continue to see equities melting up toward the end of the year, seasonality, and also enthusiasm that we may be at the end of the rate hiking cycle in the States?
Well, I'd like to say I know what's going to happen, Nadine. I really don't know. In the short term, I think it's it's a flip of the coin. I feel like the companies that we're invested in, the large tech companies, cloud growth's been very strong. Consumers still hanging in there, so we still feel pretty good about this next quarter. But yeah, it's very hard to call at this stage.
Yeah. All right, Lachlan, thanks for spending some time with us this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Nadine.
From Swell Asset Management, joining us, I believe, from Brisbane. So there you go. Plenty of big things to hang our hats on today. Here locally, we are expecting to see this market lift modestly upon the open. We'll be watching energy, we'll be watching copper, we'll be watching technology, and Technology One in particular. I dare say there's going to be a pretty positive reaction to its result. I hope I'm not proven wrong. There's the SPY futures up by 14 points. That's it for the Global View. Don't go anywhere. Andrew Gagan will take you through the open next.